and thank you all to all of you from the press who've joined us today. Right now, President Trump and his co-president, Elon Musk, are really breaking American government. They are firing workers left and right with no plan, no strategy, and no concern for who's getting hurt. And we know there is no plan because they literally fired hundreds of people in charge of ensuring the security of our nuclear arsenal, only to desperately turn around and try to hire them back. That's the height of incompetence. And these other firings are just as senseless and reckless. In the middle of a bird flu threat, they are firing public health experts. Weeks after the deadliest plane crash in years, they are firing FAA workers. And after the devastating wildfires recently, they are firing members of the Forest Service, and we will be able to hear from one of them in a minute. They are firing people who work in law enforcement, who do food and drug inspections, who research deadly diseases, and who are cleaning up nuclear waste. Now, I've spent years trying to get the Hanford cleanup the resources it needs, and we've made progress, but it's still understaffed. Even before these pointless layoffs last week cut it down to a skeleton crew. We know Trump's firing spree is not about merit because they are targeting new employees, people who have been recognized for outstanding performance, and people who were recently promoted, who are now getting fired from their newly earned jobs. Trump and Musk, by design, are pushing out some of our best performers, the fresh blood in the federal workforce. We know Trump's mass firings aren't just about saving money. Otherwise, there would be no reason for them to fire hundreds of workers at Bonneville Power. After all, those positions at Bonneville Power are actually funded by ratepayers, by all of us who live in the Pacific Northwest. They are not from federal funding. And these are people who literally help us to keep the lights on. But no matter, they're being fired on a whim because two billionaires don't have a clue about what they do and don't care to learn. And Trump is not tossing workers out on the street to make government more efficient. VA researchers are being fired as well. VA Puget Sound workers are being fired despite the life-saving research they are working on to prevent veteran suicide, build life-changing prosthetics, and address opioid addiction and a lot more. This is not just a betrayal of these public workers. It really is a betrayal of our women and men in uniform who trust we will take care of them when they come home, especially considering they have also laid off many veterans, people who served our country and wanted to keep serving our country. And that really underscores an important point about exactly who Trump is firing. These are people who love our country. They love their communities. They work hard. They make an honest living. They have families to support. And I am so grateful to be joined today by some of them who will speak about what they have been through. And I want to say to all of you, thank you for the work you've done for our country. You deserve so much more than how you are being treated right now. What Elon and Trump are doing is going to set our country back. But we are not powerless. And your decision to share your stories today is really proof of that. We each have a voice. We can all speak out for a government that works for middle-class families and regular people, not just billionaires who will never need to call about their Social Security benefit or file a disability claim at VA. So I really want to thank all of you for being here to share your personal stories so everyone can really understand what is going on out there. So I appreciate it. And Greg, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you, Senator. First off, I'd like to thank you for fighting for us, for the little guy, for the federal workers. I'd like to thank your staff for reaching out to me. And I'd like to thank the press corps that's here. And in these troubling times, the press corps is so much more important. And your role is absolutely critical. My name is Greg Bafundo. I live in Tonasket, Washington. And until Friday, I was a lead wilderness ranger with the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest here in Washington. I was also a wildland firefighter. a forest protection officer, a resource advisor, an emergency medical technician, and that's just a few of the titles that I hold in federal work. Um, so what does a ranger do? We think of wilderness rangers as people who walk around in the woods and hike and backpack. And while that's true, um, in the simplest terms, we save lives. Um, we protect our environment. We protect the American people and the very dirt that our country is built upon. Um, I've saved lives dangling off of cliffs in the North Cascades. I saved the life of a cardiac patient on the Natchez Loop Trail just outside Mount Rainier National Park. I stood in the way as 100-foot flames burned toward the town of Natchez, and myself, along with numerous other now fired federal workers, prevented that town from burning. For 18 years, I faithfully served my country. I was a U.S. Marine for 8 years, and I was with the U.S. and have been with the Forest Service for 10 years as a wilderness ranger. I have always placed myself between the danger and my fellow citizens. And now I feel like I've been cast aside like some sort of parasite class or some kind of fraud. These heartless and gutless firings will lead to the loss of lives and property. Towns like Natchez may burn next year. My patient on the Natchez Loop Trail may not make it next year because people like me will not be available to help when the call comes. The impacts to our citizenry are, at this point, they're untold. Small rural towns like Tonasket and Natchez may not survive under the crush of this. These firings are illegal. They violate norms. They violate bargaining agreements. President Trump and his cohort Elon Musk are violating laws in firing these hardworking Americans. And I'd like to say that Mr. Vaught said that he wants the federal workers to be traumatized. And I'd like to congratulate him for that. I'd like to congratulate him for that success. These illegal actions serve only one purpose, and that is to hurt good, hardworking Americans, federal workers just like myself. But I want to point out the one thing that Mr. Vaught didn't take into account, and that was while he may have traumatized federal workers, he's also mobilized us and he's organized us. And rest assured that Rangers like myself, we take our oath seriously. And so with that, I look forward to working with you, Senator Murray, and I look forward to working with the press, and I look forward to working with my other federal workers who've been let go, my other rangers, trail crews, firefighters, Forest Service employees, biologists that have all been fired without cause. So I look forward to working with you all as we continue to save our republic.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Raphael, we'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Senator Murray, fellow community, and members of the press. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I would like to thank the community that is standing with us as well. My name is Raphael Garcia. I'm a disabled Army veteran, and I was a dedicated employee at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Before I joined active duty in the United States Army in November of 2016, I spent much of 2016 volunteering directly with veteran patients at the Jefferson Barracks VA Medical Center in St. Louis, logging over 1,100 volunteer hours in their physical therapy department over a 9-month period. That time reaffirmed my desire to support fellow veterans in any way I could, as I am also the son of a Navy veteran who also worked for the VA. For the past 7.5 months, I served as a sole management analyst for the Veterans Benefits Administration's Disability Rating Activity Site at the Seattle Regional Office. In that role, I essentially performed the work of two positions, ensuring that all Army disability claims for active duty, reserve, and National Guard service members medically separating from service were processed accurately and timely under the Integrated Disability Evaluation System. This includes every single Army service member that is being separated medically across the nation. I managed critical compliance and operational controls while maintaining constant communication with stakeholders nationwide. I coordinated IT system access so that every team member had the proper tools, pulled daily workload reports to track our progress, and managed validating payroll, overtime, and even the sick call line to keep our operations running smoothly. Additionally, I oversaw the onboarding of new employees, maintained our division's website and records, and led initiatives for policy improvement and employee engagement. I was even working on a special project to enhance our work environment through coordination with external stakeholders, an effort designed to improve our internal employee satisfaction survey scores and ultimately the quality of service we provide to veterans and their families. Yet, despite my unwavering commitment and a record of exceptional performance, I was abruptly terminated, not for any deficiencies in my work, but as a part of a sweeping budget cuts. I swore an oath to serve our country, first in the United States Army and then at the VA, only be abruptly terminated by the very institution that promised to care for those who have served. My termination isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a stark reminder that our federal government is dismantling essential support systems for veterans and vulnerable communities. When cost cutting means sacrificing dedicated, disabled service members and committed federal employees, it isn't about efficiency. It's about eroding the trust and dignity that our nation owes to those who answer the call to serve. This decision is not only a personal blow, it disrupts an entire system designed to process disability claims promptly, leaving thousands of veterans waiting longer for critical benefits as we are already backlogged in tons of inventory. Removing key personnel not only delays claim processing, it erodes the institutional knowledge built over years of service and sacrifices the care and compassion our veterans deserve. I stand here today not only to share my story, but to call for accountability. I urge our public leaders to intervene and help reverse these misguided cuts. We must restore the workforce that keeps the federal government running and upholding its solemn promise to care for those who have served. Our nation owes it to our veterans to ensure that efficiency is never pursued at the cost of their trust and dignity. Thank you for your time and for your continued commitment to supporting our veterans. I remain dedicated to fighting for justice, for restoring these essential services, and for ensuring that no veteran is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. And Liz.
Thank you. Thank you for holding this conversation today. I live in Washington and worked at the Bonneville Power Administration for 15 years through 2023. I want to share a few key concerns about reducing the Bonneville workforce through buyouts, hiring freezes, and firings. Bonneville is the source of nearly 50% of the electrical power that is consumed in the state of Washington, or about 30% of the power consumed in the Northwest states. And it owns, operates, and maintains over 15,000 circuit miles of high voltage transmission from Montana across Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, extending into Wyoming, Nevada, and California. Critically, Bonneville has over a dozen new transmission projects in the planning stages, which its customers are asking for to serve the increasing demand for electricity and interconnect new power generators being built. First, as mentioned, Bonneville is self-funded by selling transmission or selling electrical power. That's it. No federal tax revenues fund its work or its employees. Cutting its employees does not save the federal taxpayer a dime. Second, Bonneville's constituents and customers are invited to review all of Bonneville's programs and budgets every 2 years and participate in its rate cases. Any constituent, power generator, power marketer, environmental group, government agency, or electric retail utility can participate. Bonneville strives to maintain a no surprises approach to its work in the Northwest. When people flip the switch, they expect their lights to turn on. They want their water hot, they want their phones charged. In the Northwestern US, Bonneville is the agency delivering power reliably at the wholesale level that helps local electric utilities to be able to provide reliable power to households, hospitals, businesses, and industries. Third, I've heard that a few Electrical engineers may have had their jobs reinstated after being fired during their probationary period. That's very good news. However, Bonneville is a team machine. Behind every transmission engineer, grid operator, or hydropower operator are many essential employees keeping the work moving forward. There are long-term power traders, think months and years. There are short-term power traders, think minutes and hours. Administrative contract specialists, lawyers, billing, and financing employees. When Bonneville is determining routes for building new transmission lines, and again, it has over a dozen new lines in its plans, then Bonneville has communication and outreach specialists, analytical experts, and civil engineers who meet with local governments, local constituents, and potential transmission line neighbors to address every question asked of the agency, to identify the path with the least overall impact and the most electrical benefit. Bonneville works as a team regionally too. Its transmission line crews are in the field 12 months a year during storms after wildfires, and it shares its crews with local utilities to restore power after natural disasters. The agency funds and partners with state agencies, tribes, nonprofits, and local governments to mitigate for these impacts of its operations. If the US government was able to help Bonneville be more efficient, it could implement measures to make it easier to hire talented employees, not lose existing or incoming employees. The arbitrary layoffs and hiring freezes will make it increasingly harder for the remaining employees to do their jobs and to do them safely. In the past, Bonneville has implemented self-imposed hiring freezes when needed to manage its costs. It engaged with its constituents first to discuss priorities and key services. Currently, its customers are asking Bonneville to expand its transmission service, not shrink it. It's extremely painful to see these random layoffs, terminations, and non-strategic buyouts. Northwest ratepayers should be very concerned. Bonneville helps keep the lights on in the Northwest. Its work costs taxpayers nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan, you want to, first of all, I again want to thank everybody for sharing your stories. For all of the reporters who are online, I have had hundreds of calls like this, and these three individuals agreed to come on today to share a story, really so that people can see a government employee isn't a line item or a non-functioning existence. Real people doing real work that is critical for the safety, health, and well-being of all of us. And this is who is being laid off by this administration. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. And Dylan, you want to call on folks, that'd be great.
Yes, if you've got a question, just please raise your hand. And if you can ensure that your name has your outlet as well, we will go first to Tim Gordon here. Tim, all you.
Thank you very much. I'm with KGW in Portland. Senator Murray, thanks for this conversation. I've got to ask you, though, about Lori Chavez de Remer and the confirmation hearing today. She answered your questions and seemed willing to work with you on child labor issues, but she also flipped on the PRO Act and particularly the right to work aspect of it. And as your colleague, Senator Wyden, pointed out, she also flipped on her pro-choice stand and is now saying she's anti-abortion in line with the Trump administration. How do you think it went for her, and what's your position on supporting her at this point?
Well, I was really extremely disappointed with her performance today. She is asking to be Secretary of Labor. She is asking to be a voice for workers and to make sure their rights are protected in this country. And she made it very clear that that was not what her mandate was going to be. It was whatever the Trump administration was doing. And as we have just heard from all of these workers, the mandate has been go in, decimate the agency, don't protect the actual workforce there that does the work of protecting people. And we need somebody who is stronger than that, a stronger voice to stand up to that.
So will you vote against her?
I have not voiced my opinion vocally. I will just say I was extremely disappointed. I've talked to a number of senators after that hearing today, and they also expressed the same thing.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great. And we'll just try to keep questions here to the topic of layoffs as well. Next, we'll head to Robert with the Bellingham Herald.
Hi, thanks, Senator. I'm going to direct my question to Greg. We're a local newspaper here in Northwest Whatcom County. I'm wondering if you have any handle on how cuts, especially to firefighting, might affect the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest or the North Cascades National Park, organizations like the Baker River Hotshots, or planning for wildfire fire attack.
I can't speak to that specifically. However, I have heard that MBS lost somewhere around a third of its staff. I can't confirm that though. As far as firefighting readiness goes, this is the time of year when they hire everybody. This is the time of year when firefighters renew their red cards and practice redeploying their fire shelters. This is when they train to be ready to fight next summer's fires. We can't train while the fire is burning over the hill. And I would assume it's a similar situation for NOCA too, the North Cascades National Park. But specifically, I can't speak to how many personnel they've lost or how that impacts their seasonal hiring.
Thank you, Greg.
Sure.
Be safe.
Thanks.
All right, next we'll turn to John Stang with Crosscut.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Have two questions. Both are for Senator Murray. One is, has the BPA or the Department of Energy provided you with a breakdown of what functions or departments within the BPA were the hardest hit by the layoffs? Essentially, was there an extra large number of grid maintenance guys eliminated, or did you lose all their traders or something like that? Second question is, can you talk to your Republican colleagues in the Senate and enlist their help, saying what's happening in Washington State is going to happen in practically every red state, especially the Western plain states, which are all Republican?
Well, let me answer the last question first, and that is I have been talking to my Republican colleagues. We know that this is a Republican administration and the Republicans are in the majority in the House and Senate. One of the reasons I am doing this call today is for people to see it's beyond just well, we randomly went and cut 10% or 5% or just people that are brand new or whatever. These are real jobs, real people, real functions, and they are critical to the health and safety and our livelihoods in the Pacific Northwest and across the country. But we need people to see that in order for our Republican colleagues to truly understand the impacts of that. Secondly, on the exact numbers at BPA, one of our challenges right now, in one of my frustrations as an elected official in the Pacific Northwest, is I have worked with Republican and Democratic administrations throughout my long career. We've always been able to talk to the agencies and have someone who will give us the information we need. We are not being given information from the agencies themselves about those exact numbers. So we are collecting our information a lot from people who are calling in, working with folks that are willing to be whistleblowers and give us information, but we do not have the specifics in BPA who's been laid off. And to me, that's really troubling, as part of my job is oversight. And making sure that Bonneville or Hanford or our Forest Service or our VA or Social Security Administration have the capability to serve the people that I represent. So we are very frustrated right now.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go next to Samantha with Inlander.
Thank you. So Liz, since it sounds like you left before these rounds of layoffs, this question isn't for you, but for Greg and Raphael, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about which round of layoffs you were involved in. It sounds like both of you had maybe been there longer than would have been impacted by the probationary period that saw a lot of layoffs on Thursday. And then I have a second question for Senator Murray, which is what power do managers and supervisors in these many, many offices across the country have to combat the layoffs, specifically on Thursday last week, where we saw across the board people being told that their performance was not satisfactory, and so therefore you're let go because you're probationary?
Let me let Greg and Raphael answer your first question, and I'll take a stab at the second.
Yeah, Raphael, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So my termination, so despite having that outstanding performance evaluation from my supervisors, they went and submitted an exemption reconsideration request on my behalf, but I was abruptly terminated after hours on February 13th of 2025 via email. The official explanation cited that based on my performance, that you have not demonstrated that your further employment at the agency would be in the public interest. But there was no evidence of any deficiencies or prior counselings. I was even pending a promotion in the fall timeframe for the second job I was handling, in addition to my job. So I would rather have them been more honest and transparent with the notification than tell me it's cited because of my performance.
Yeah, that letter is verbatim the letter that I received. And I was fired on Friday via email. And the email said, and I quote, "An orderly offboarding process is critical to successfully closing out your employment. Please work with your district ranger or supervisor for offboarding." And then the letter was attached. I've been with the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest for 9 seasons, and I took a promotion. Last year, they did the U.S. Forest Service did a huge temp to perm conversion where they took a lot of temporary seasonal workers and they made us permanent workers. And in that conversion, I got bumped into probationary status. Even though 8 years as a Marine Corps veteran, I should be immune from probationary status. And even though all of my performance reviews are outstanding or excellent, and this year I received a performance bonus by my district ranger. So these firings are clearly political in nature, and anybody who they believe is new or was appointed under the previous administration, they just canned. And I think it's important too, that I want to mention one other thing is that my salary is 100% funded by state dollars. I'm actually not funded by any federal dollars. Neither is any of my crews. So firing me takes $0 out of the federal deficit.
Yeah, what you just heard is what I'm hearing literally from hundreds of callers. What we saw was Elon Musk and Trump go into agencies across the board, not just the ones you're hearing from, with no idea of a end game except for we're going to cut the budgets and get rid of people. No idea what they were doing, how long they'd been there, what their performance was, anything, and sending out these horrific letters. And basically what they said on probationary status, most people would think maybe you've only been there 6 months, but that is not the case. Many people who had just gotten a promotion were put on, are in what's called probation status. Many veterans who go in at veterans preference are on probation status. Many people who just got hired are filling a critical position, even if it truly is what we would all think is probationary. They're filling a position that is absolutely essential within that agency. So this was really, it is ham-handed, it is dangerous, and it is mean. And that's what we're finding across the board.
Thank you all for that clarification. And I'll just go back to the one last question that I had for you, Senator Murray, which is what can managers or supervisors do to save any of these folks, bring them back? I'm hearing kind of conflicting reports from local folks about being told, hey, hold on, we'll see if we can bring you back.
Yeah, well, because it was done so badly, we do have managers who are trying to say, wait, you've taken away a critical function. This is a position we cannot live without. This is not how you treat people. And they're being told, well, we'll go back and take a look at it. But to my knowledge, that's not really happening. It's just kind of a pat on the head to people who are saying anything right now. And look, I think we have to remember what their goal is here. They've been very clear about this, which is they want to save a ton of money by firing a bunch of people across the board who happen to be what we call government workers working for all of us across the board. And then so they can turn around and say, oh, we've saved how many millions of dollars for all of you taxpayers. But in essence, what we're really doing is costing our country in the long run and doing it in a very dangerous way.
Great. We've got time for just a couple more questions here. We'll turn next to Aiden Whitaker.
Hi, Aiden Whitaker, Keeper TV. Senator, we've heard that numerous people from dozens of agencies and organizations have faced layoffs, and specifically, we're really concerned about the Hanford site, obviously, with nuclear cleanup operations. That's something that shouldn't be taken lightly, as I'm sure you're aware. And so we just kind of wanted to try and get more tangible numbers and an idea of how many people we're talking about that have potentially been laid off from the site. I know you don't have firm numbers, but
we don't, Aiden, but we do know, as you well know, at the Hanford site, it is a number of contractors that we've contracted the work to. And at this point, they have not been impacted. What they are doing is actually taking all of the people who do oversight of our contractors to make sure that safety is taken care of, that they're following all the rules and regulations. That in Hanford, that's often public safety and community safety around there. But we're hearing about energy employees that do safety engineers, environmental scientists who've been laid off, people who monitor the urgent safety issues there, people who make sure that workers' rights are protected have been laid off. We're hearing well over a dozen, but at this point, we are not being given all the information. And again, these are the people who do the oversight of the private contractors to make sure they are spending our tax dollars wisely and doing it in a safe way.
Perfect. And then people who are concerned about stuff like this, obviously, there's a lot of us here in the Tri-Cities right outside the site who are fairly concerned about this. The site they're not forthcoming with information due to the security risks with that. So being a senator,
that right there should tell you, Aiden, that if they're worried about the security risks that have been now compromised because of the layoffs of these workers, that is outright wrong.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Martha with AP, if you've still got a question, you're up next.
It was answered. Thank you.
Great. We will then turn to Brandon Thompson.
Hi there, Brandon with Cairo 7 News. Thank you for the time today. Raphael, I wanted to start with you. You said you were doing work addressing the backlog for benefits and care for veterans. Do you worry that, that's something that I've been covering for years. Did you feel like you were starting to get momentum on addressing that backlog? And what do you worry happens with that now that a position like yours has been cut?
Yeah, so we were transitioning to a time frame because eventually we want to gradually incorporate more automation into our claims processing. But around my time from when I'd served, so about 7.5 months, we processed 15,000 claims, and we were looking at a staff of just over 170. And you have to note that some of that staff, a bunch of those people are going through training, and that training requires 6 months for them to be able to properly rate a claim, let alone manage workloads that are coming in. So the inventory from the Army, because we don't just manage Washington State, we manage every single Army base in the nation, countrywide. So the inventory keeps increasing, and our average days to complete's actually been increasing as well. So like our goal is to, by the time that service member that's separated for that medical condition gets out, their benefits are lined up as they get out. But we're trickling into like 16 average days complete. So it's going even higher and higher gradually with these cuts too.
And if I could follow up really quick, both for you and Dan, as veterans who have served this country, how does it feel to be treated like this by the federal government?
Go for it, Raphael. I have an idea what you're going to say.
It's disheartening, especially like knowing because like I was drawn to the mission. Like I even took pay cuts. Like I work outside of hours without pay, just because I know how much I care about my community, the fellow veterans. So, um, being taken away from this position, it was a stab to the heart because like I was like, this is the dream place I want to be working. I'm working on my MBA right now at UW, and I want to take everything I'm learning to incorporate that to make strategic improvements within the VA's structure and system. And now that I'm out, it's like, well, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it kick in the gut, stabbed in the back. It's clearly obvious that veterans are very low on the totem pole when it comes to this administration. It makes me feel, it makes me ask, why did I do it? I wrote a blank check to the American people that said payable up to the value of my life, and this is the return on that investment that I've gotten. It's really, really hard to take. Really hard to take.
Thank you both.
Next, we'll turn to Nathan with Reuters.
Hello. I have a a big picture question for Senator Murray. What we're talking about right now is kind of the first phase of this, right? You've got the deferred resignation program and then probationary employees. I think that's the bulk of what we're sort of looking at right now. How would you characterize where we are in this process? How concerned are you about kind of what might be called the next phase, which would be, reductions in force, going after career employees sort of more a concerted manner, as well as maybe Schedule F related concerns. Can you just talk a little bit about where you think we are, and also what role Congress will play in perhaps acting as a check on what comes next?
Nathan, I am really frightened about what next steps are because this is really written in Project 2025. I know that Trump said he never read it, but this is being implemented right now. And the goal is to really decimate our entire federal workforce, like it's some line item in the sky. These are real jobs with real functions, with real people that protect us and work for us every day on really important missions. This is going on without any look at what functions they want to retain or what their vision of our country will look like in the future if they keep going down this path. So yeah, I am really frightened about the direction they're going. That is exactly why I am trying to do this as much as I can to highlight for the public who these people are, what they do, and why it's so important that we stand up and our Republican counterparts stand up with us and say no more. And the only way we do that is with the public outcry.
All right.
I will also tell you that it's really hard to get folks to tell their stories right now because there is a real fear of retribution in those agencies where people still have their jobs, even for some of the people that are left that are hoping somehow a miracle will happen and they come back. And that to me is a tragedy. We've got to stand up and speak out. And I really do want to thank especially Greg and Raphael for saying something, and for all the folks that are calling us and telling us what's going on.
Got time for just a couple more here. We'll turn to Noah Corin at KHQ next.
Awesome. Thank you. This is for Senator Murray, and I appreciate all of you, sharing your stories here. We heard a lot about potential, negative impacts, some potentially catastrophic impacts of what you've called, Senator Murray, these ham-fisted layoffs. Democrats are kind of sidelined right now, but you're going to have opportunities to change that. It's the beauty of being in a democracy. How do you keep these things in the electoral conversation looking to 2026 and 2028?
To me, right now, it's not about politics. It's about making sure that the United States of America is there with the specific important role that we have of making sure that the families who live here have the supports that they need to be able to have opportunities and prosper, just like all of us have had growing up. And I'm focused on that. And I would say that if this continues, the public is going to see it more and more. These are people who live in communities. They shop at the grocery stores. They're without a job. That impacts the grocery store that they went to. As we see these functions that we all just assume just kind of happen, like there's somebody there to fight a forest fire for us, or to make sure the lights are turned on, or that somebody's doing critical research on opioids, is going to be successful. When that all goes away, it's going to have a huge impact. So my goal is to stop it, work as hard as we can to stop this from continuing. But I will say, I can't imagine this country is just going to sit back and say, oh, well, to this kind of decimation that we're seeing.
Thank you.
We'll turn to Anna King with Northwest Public Broadcasting.
Senator Murray, we spoke a few days ago, and I just wondered if there's any more light on the subject of Hanford and the cuts there. How many of these folks have you heard from? As you mentioned, there's a lot of fear and quiet around the site right now, and I just wonder how hard it is for your office to get good information out.
And I wish we could have the numbers and people would be honest with us from the agency, but they are not giving us clear numbers. What I do know is that the workforce on site is extremely reluctant to talk, and I don't blame them for fear of retribution or being the next person in line to be laid off. But they are expressing to us their real fear and concern about the safety at the site and the ability for us to accomplish the mission there.
And Senator, what does that say to you about the safety at Hanford, which is, coming to question over the decades that I've reported on this site, as well as your tenure? Even in good times, even in normal times, the safety at the site is always a concern. Now, how are you thinking about it?
I'm really, really worried, Anna. This is something I have fought forever to make sure we have the resources there, that we have the right people in place, that we have the right contractors who are doing the right work. And number one, the safety of the workers and the safety of those who live around that, all of us in the region, has been my number one priority. Taking that in the wrong direction is just frightening to me.
Have you heard firsthand from any of the Hanford employees, and can you relate anything about those conversations?
We are hearing from them. Many of them, or all of them, are pretty reluctant to say anything because of their fear of retribution.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
And last, we'll turn to Jasper with the Yakima Herald.
Hi, this is a question for Liz, Raphael, and Greg. A couple ones that hopefully run together. Did you guys receive any severance packages, any support as you're leaving? How does this type of firing impact your careers going forward, being that these are nuanced and specific bodies of knowledge and work that you do, and you're also being fired allegedly and with this sort of performance based wording kind of out there? And then how does this impact your trust for the federal government going forward? Would you guys take federal jobs in the future now that you've had to experience this and go through all of this? Sorry, that was a lot.
Answer the question about severance or any kind of continuation of healthcare, how this is impacting you, because I'm hearing a lot about this. Greg or Raphael?
Yeah, I wasn't offered any severance or anything like that. I have heard that a number of people are being denied unemployment claims because they were fired for poor performance, which we all know is a lie. As far as working, for the federal government, again, I'm a patriot, and I will work for the American people however I can work for the American people. whether that will continue in the federal workforce or with an NGO or a nonprofit or something like that. Maybe those are my options, but I think a critical component to this is the fact that most of us loved our jobs. We loved what we did. We loved being able to look a fellow citizen in the eye and say, I got you. And we can't do that anymore. And that's, that it's not what America was founded upon. It violates who we are as a nation.
That I just have to say personally, that hurts so much to hear you say that, because all Americans rely on people like you and Raphael and Liz for us to have the kind of quality of life, the safety and security of living in the communities we live in, to be able to do the things we do. And we don't stop and think, gosh, that person actually made my life easier. But the stab really is that message has been sent to you. And I want both of you, all of you, to know there's a lot of people who think differently, and we all need to stand up and have your back.
Thank you.
And then for me, I haven't even gotten any other additional guidance. Like, basically, I was trying to crank out work on Friday, even after I'd been terminated, because I knew there was work that needed to be done. And then all of a sudden, my systems and accounts got cut off. And then next thing you know, I get a call on Monday saying, hey, while your reconsideration is processing, your appeal is processing, you could actually work. So I go into office on Tuesday, and then still don't have account access or anything. I can't get in. I spend the whole day in office looking over my coworker's shoulder, telling him what to do because I needed things getting done. So I was basically pointing at things for him while he was on his computer account. But outside that, and then I just got a call today that I got to turn in all my stuff tomorrow. So I really don't know what's ahead with my pending reconsideration or appeal. I'd love to work for them still. And there's a lot of things they're behind on. So if they call me back, I'm head back and I'm cranking out that work.
These are the people we want working for our country.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Sorry, that was a long question. I appreciate your answers.
Well, thank you everyone for being on with us. We will continue to all of our media friends to try and bring you stories so that you can share that impact, because I think Americans deserve to know what's really going on here. So I really appreciate it. Greg, Raphael, Liz, thank you for sharing as well.
Thank you,
Senator.